Welcome to episode 59 of PixlFeed Radio. I'm your host, Christian, and I'm here with my friend, Matt Gillis. Matt, how you doing today?
Christian, pumped to be here, man.
How are you? Man, I can already tell this is going to be a good one. You have the same energy that I do right now, so that's good. We're on the same level.
Yeah, it's a little after lunch, right?
So yeah. So I just had a little bit of espresso to get me going and all that, awesome. Because that lunch carb hits hard, man. Sometimes
you got it.
So for those of you that don't know, Matt is the founder of a company called Clean.io, and what the company does, they specialize. Here, I'll let you explain it because I don't want to butcher it. So
you'll totally butcher it. So
yeah, because I'm in e-commerce. So as soon as I saw it, I was like, I need to talk to him.
You're in e-commerce? So, I'm in e-commerce too.
There you go. That's awesome. Over here.
It's awesome. Listen, we're a digital engagement security platform, right? So we protect engagements that online businesses have with their consumers and their end users. So typical websites that have user engagement where a user would be consuming content, we protect those engagements and the revenue and the reputation that goes along with those sites. And we've got some new products that are in the e-commerce side that I'm excited to tell you about as well. So it's been a journey on our side. We've been around for about 3 years. We're about 40 people solely focused on making sure that user engagements are secure and they're protected, and that when people go to your website, they have the best experience.
And you guys just had a round of funding.
We did
back in August for like $5 million, right? So that's amazing. That's good.
If I could tell you the story that came behind it, yeah, we started raising money actually about the fourth week, like right at the end of February. And so we raised money during COVID. It was interesting, but yeah, we raised $5 million, and it was like one of those life experiences that tested me and. We have great results. And so, but the fact is most investors like to meet you and they like to come and shake your hand and see your office and meet the team. And I did the entire thing over Zoom. And so, yeah, it was one of I still have not met in person my main investor that invested $3.5 million.
That's crazy.
So, but you know what? I think it speaks to the importance of your reputation. Listen, I've worked my life to preserve my reputation and earn my reputation. And I think it mattered in that time during COVID where, you're meeting people for the first time. You don't get to shake their hands. They back channel, right? So they're going to look on LinkedIn and see who they know, who you know. And, but we just raised $5 million to fuel the next phase of our growth. And things are going awesome right now.
Yeah. When I started in working with clients, because I come from an e-commerce background, my own stuff. And then eventually people just kept asking me to help them. And I was like, right, all right. I mean, why not? If I can make extra cash and get to meet all these great people and great businesses that I can help grow, which is an amazing feeling to me, to see them to go from like X to XY, with my help, that's the best feeling ever. And at first, people start to refer you to other people that don't know who you are. And then the first question was, where's your office located? I was like, yeah, about in my condo. And you try to explain it to them. It's like, listen, my whole team is remote. I have people all over the world. And this is way before. We're talking about 2000, 15, 16, somewhere on there when it started. And people they were like very apprehensive about it. And I'm like, listen, there's no need. I mean, there's no point of us having an office, trust me. And then now I'm kind of quote unquote happy that it happened because it takes the whole awkwardness away and there's no explanation needed. It's like, yeah, man, we can work from anywhere in the world. It's cool, So
I agree with you. And we moved into 4,000 square feet here, literally February the 1st.
Yeah.
So, there was no worse time to actually start a lease than a month before COVID struck. But you know what? It's great for us. Like it's home base for us in Baltimore here. That's where we're located. And so, it is good to have a home base, but like you, like we had 8 people jammed into a 10 by 15 room and, it's fun, right? I mean, I like the scrappiness, and we also have a lot of remote employees. We do
meet 3 times a year in person. Obviously not this year, but we do meet in person 3 times a year just to have a team. I want to say team builder because we've been together forever, but just to see each other,
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind at one point, I thought about like actually opening like a small office, but then I'm like, we're not going to be there 99% of the time, so there's no point. Now, if you have a bigger team, obviously like the company you have, then I can absolutely see why you need a home office, you know what I mean? Not a home office, but like a home base type of deal where people can come and go or whatever, you know. Certain projects, it's good to have like the team together in person. I still feel that way about certain things because people can play off each other's energy and then brainstorm in real time. And I think that makes a difference. I mean, as good as that remote stuff is, I'm old school like that. Like I don't think there's anything better than when you have the chance to get in a room with some colleagues and say, all right, let's bang this out and just a whiteboard and just go at it. You know what I mean? And that's what we do when we meet up when we have new ideas. You know?
I think that's the biggest thing that most folks are missing from, you know, this COVID world or post-COVID world that we're all living in, which is the whiteboard, right? Like where you get in the room and, you know, like where you go, hey, you, and you, let's go in here and let's solve that problem. And you do it in 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
So now, like, obviously we're still solving those problems. We're just doing them a little bit differently than we used to. You know, but I think it pushes everybody to be a little bit more transparent and to get a little more creative and, you know.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about the company and everything about it. But before we get into it, you know, this is a question I ask everybody when they come on. How did Matt start it? You know, entrepreneur, you obviously been very successful. Were you one of those kids that was like doing side hustles growing up, or, you know, when did you start your first business? What was it? How did the journey start?
The lemonade stand, I'll tell you. No,
yes.
No, listen, I'll give you the full story. One, I'm not a founder of Clean, right? So that's one interesting thing. I came in as the CEO about 2 years ago, right after we started and launched the product. So there are 5 founders who really put blood, sweat, and tears and bootstrap this thing to get it, you know, to where we actually started to have what we thought was a really like a scalable venture backable business. And that's when they handed it to me, and I've you know, been the CEO and raised a couple rounds of funding with it. But no, listen, I've been a worker like since I was 13. I think, you know, like always doing the summer job. I had worked from the first day I got off of school and worked right until the last day I went back to school. I've been in mobile my whole career. So when I graduated university, I started in the mobile business. At that time, so I'm old as dirt, Christian.
I'm old too, so.
Okay, but so like at that time, the only thing you could do with your cell phone was make phone calls. And at that time, it was a novelty to make phone calls, right? And so I started in marketing, and I was the kid that stood out on a golf course, and you know, businessmen and businesswomen would kind of walk up to the tee box, and I would have cell phones out on a table, and I'd say, "Hey, would you like to make a phone call?" And and that was like the cool and interesting thing that you could do with a cell phone then. But and so I worked at the phone company. I worked at Bell Mobility in Toronto, Canada, and Verizon in the U.S. And I very
fun fact. I worked for Verizon at one point.
Awesome.
Back in the day, yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah,
they're a great company to work for when I worked for somebody else. No
amazing.
doubt. I still have a Verizon phone. I will never change the service. But anyway, sorry.
Okay. Well, I just switched to T-Mobile, but don't.
How dare you?
But that's for another story.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I started to move into these areas of all of the things that you do with your cell phone, except make phone calls. So things like play games, download ringtones. If you remember those in the early days of like, you know, the digital content on your phone. I then moved in.
I got yelled at a couple of times for using the internet on my phone by my parents. Yeah, because it was like $10 a second when you went online.
Yeah, exactly. You'd pay for like your 100 megabyte bundle.
Yeah.
But and then I went and did a startup, a video game startup, where we made the big game that we launched was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Which, if you remember that TV game show.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we did a whole bunch of TV game shows, and I sold that company to Capcom, which is a Japanese video game conglomerate.
Street Fighter,
Street Fighter, Resident Evil, Mega Man, you know, Lost Planet.
I'm a gamer, man. You know, yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I ran the mobile division at Capcom for on the publishing side for 4 years after the acquisition. And then in those days, we were dealing with this real difficult challenge of monetizing content. So if you know that you'll go to Starbucks every day and you'll pay $5 and have a latte every single day, but you won't pay $5 to play a game on your phone. And so at Capcom, we were, you know, struggling with this because, you know, we had a lot of big tentpole brands like Street Fighter, and we want people to pay, you know, $9.99. It seems reasonable. Like, this is obviously, you know, 10 years ago, but it would seem reasonable that someone would pay that, and we just couldn't get them to pay it. I had an opportunity to join a startup called Millennial Media, which is a startup that actually a platform that gave app developers the ability to monetize with ads. And so in the early days of games, you know, this is 10 years ago, remember, there was a game called Words with Friends, which you've probably heard of, and it's really popular now.
Absolutely,
and
yes.
in between every single turn, there is an ad. Well, they were one of our first partners, right? And so a lot of these games, a lot of these apps started to integrate ads into their experience, and that's how they made money, because everybody wanted free apps. Nobody wanted to pay for apps. So I did that for the last, I would say, 8 years through an IPO and then an acquisition, and I actually ended up back at Verizon. We were acquired by AOL and Verizon, so I then spent the last couple of years before Clean, really helping publishers make money with their sites. So I ran the publisher division at it was called Oath at the time. It's now called Verizon Media. And one of the biggest problems that we had were these malicious ads, these bad actors that would buy ads on websites, and they would inject, shady JavaScript that would take over the user experience. You probably had it happen to you, where you go to a website and you're scrolling, and all of a sudden it says, congratulations, Christian, you won an Amazon gift card.
Yes, I hate those.
Click anything, So that was a big problem that we had. And so when I left my job there, I went to take some time off and be a dad. I was always a dad. I had 3 kids. I just wasn't really being a good dad because I was traveling a ton for work.
Sure.
But when I got time to catch my breath and recharge the batteries, I ran into a bunch of guys that I worked with at AOL who had actually stepped away to build this company. And the company was called Clean Creative. And the company focused around solving this age-old problem of protecting user experiences from malicious activity. And so that's, that kind of takes me to today. I joined this company 2 years ago. We raised our seed round about a year and a half ago. We raised our Series A about 6 months ago. And it's been explosive growth. And so, our code now runs on about 7 million sites a month. Some of the biggest names on the internet leverage our technology to preserve their user experiences and preserve their revenue. And God, it's fun. It's fun coming to work.
That's cool. So let me ask you something. So the company, about protecting the user experience from both sides, because you have apps out there and you see it all the time. It's like, to use all this, they offer discount codes and stuff like that. And you guys protect websites from companies like that, correct?
So really interesting. So our company's been around for about 3 years now. We really started in this, what we call malvertising space and solving these malicious ads. As you're probably aware, because you buy media for a lot of companies, if you buy programmatic media, you have a seat on a demand side platform, and that in turn exposes you to a whole bunch of supply side platforms who expose you to specific websites where you're going to buy ads. And that's what the bad actors do. They just have a seat on a demand side platform, and they're buyers. In fact, the bad actors who are injecting these malicious ads are some of the most sophisticated performance marketers on the planet, because they know how to buy an ad, and instead of getting a 0.5% click-through rate, they know how to get a 100% click-through rate.
Yeah.
And so they can buy that same $1 CPM ad and get 1,000 clicks. And so everything that we do in this business is deterministic. We're able to really point back to exactly what does that supply path look like and who was that bad actor. What we started to see was that more threats were coming through these other channels, like client-side injections. So think of it as a Chrome extension that sits resident on your laptop, and the bad actors were using those Chrome extensions to inject threats. Some of our partners that we work with make their money through ads. And there's also some that actually have e-commerce capabilities. And so what we started to see was this behavior happen on these e-commerce sites where client-side injections were coming and disrupting their revenue. Same way they do it on the ad side, where it would disrupt revenue and user experience. When we started doing R&D on this, specifically with these e-commerce websites, what we started to see was, our legacy business has been surrounded around solving malicious activity. What we started to see was there's a whole bunch of activity that I would call untrusted. Untrusted meaning the person that owns the website hasn't authorized that code to execute on their website. We firmly believe that, if you own your website, you should be able to control the code that runs on your website.
Right.
And so what we started to see were these client-side injections coming from these Chrome extensions, specifically some of these discounting engines like Honey and WikiBuy. Where these extensions, right? And the user has raised their hand and said, I want Honey on my machine. Now
I use honey.
you use honey.
I'm not gonna lie, I use honey. Yeah.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
Oh,
Let me
I feel
explain.
bad now.
Let me explain why though. So the website, the e-commerce site, they have delivered promotional codes out to users, right?
Mhm.
They may be using marketing channels. Like, I mean, you work with marketers. They may be saying to, there's part of their strategy might be to work with YouTubers or with influencers and give an influencer, because if an influencer's got 50,000 fans, God, their fans have to maybe want to buy something from them, right? And so they would give an exclusive code out to an Instagrammer. Well, guess what?
We do it all the time.
So guess what? Do those codes take off? Do you see them very successful?
I mean, it depends on the influencer. If it's they have a good engagement rate, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So
listen, here's what happens. If I saw one of your ads and it said, type in the code, I don't know, let's just say you were doing it with someone and saying like, you want to take care of first responders, right? Well, guess what? I'm not a first responder, right? But let's just say I was. You gave me the code first responder 20, and I actually went and you motivated me to go, and I go buy something and I go to checkout and I type in first responder 20 and it gives me my 20% off. Guess what? Then Honey pops up. And Honey says, hey, guess what, Matt? We got some coupons for you. Are you interested? I'm like, sure, let's have a look. Let's see what it can do. Hit the OK button, and Honey pops up and then starts actually, the first thing that Honey does is it scrapes that code out of that promo code box and makes that promo code available for everybody who comes after me. All right.
Oh.
Honey will then add in every promo code that it has in its possession, and it will resolve to the highest discounted one that it can find. So if it can find me a higher discount than first responder 20, well, then great. I'm going to get 25 or 30% off or who knows what. But lo and behold, the real problem that exists is that now every single person that comes after me is going to get access to first responder 20. And not everybody is a first responder. And so here's what happens is that, it makes marketing attribution an absolute disaster.
I was just going to tell you, that's a nightmare right there, because your code, it's out there and then you're trying to attribute all yourself to somebody, and the attribution is not there. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And problem is it's actually going to give you false attribution. You're going to think that a marketing channel might be actually working for you.
Yeah.
So here's what happens is, first off, I've saved 25% or 20% or 30% or whatever it is. If I didn't have Honey on my machine, I wouldn't even know that code existed. Right. And so what you're seeing is a serious destruction in average cart value. And then you're seeing merchants now starting to have to pay affiliates and bounties for things that really they had no like play in. So you're not getting incremental sales. You're actually paying for sales that would have happened anyway. The analogy I use is, imagine if you were at the grocery store and you had a cart full of groceries and you walk up to the checkout and you put all your groceries on the conveyor belt. And there's someone who's standing right beside the cash register and they hand you a mitt full of coupons. And like the grocery store has no control over it. The grocery store literally says, okay, I guess we got to take these coupons. And I go and I save 30% off my order. That's not good for the grocery store, right? Like it may be good for me, but like really, aren't we trying to create a healthy, vibrant ecosystem? And so I think like merchants, are excited to use promo codes if they can drive incremental and net new sales. But if they're taking discounts from existing sales that would have happened anyway, and if they're now having to pay affiliate fees on things that would have happened anyway, that's really not the intent of a promo code.
Right. No, absolutely. Yes.
Right. And so so what we have built is this product. It's called Clean Cart. I have about 20 merchants that are already in closed beta on this thing. And we give merchants the control and the ability to block these automated promo code discounts at checkout. And so we're saving merchants in cart value. We're saving merchants from having to pay affiliate fees when they didn't have to. And we're really at the core, just like in our advertising technology business. So just like our clean ad business, we give, website publishers the ability to control the user experience and revenue and, their reputation. We're doing that same thing with e-commerce merchants, where we're giving them back control of their website. We're letting them decide what code should and shouldn't be running on their website. And we're letting them control their revenue. And we think that that is what the ecosystem wants. And by the way, that's what the ecosystem's telling us. Merchants aren't happy about this, and so and especially I would say the sophisticated merchants who really understand this stuff are really looking to get control of their websites back.
No, absolutely. Now I feel guilty, man. I never, well, I mean, it's just one of those things that I've had since forever, never, and I don't even think about it. It's like, oh, let's see, Honey pops up. It's like, hey, I got coats. I was like, oh yeah. Who's going to say no to a discount, So
listen, and Honey works on 40,000 or so sites, I think is what their publicly available number is. Wikibuy is another one. It works on, I would say
another one.
Right. And here's the deal. Honey is now owned by PayPal. Wikibuy is owned by Capital One, right? So there are big players in this market that are really trying to capitalize on this. And listen, we're here to do what's in the best interests of the merchants. We think that merchants need our help more than ever. Obviously, there's been this groundswell of activity that's changed the e-commerce world. We've seen 10 years of advancement in e-commerce in the last 12 months, right? Like we've really seen an acceleration. But
the past 6 months, right? but just with the pandemic, it's been insane. Yeah, absolutely.
But we really want to give merchants the control of their user experiences and what happens on their websites. And so listen, it's been a fun experience. We've learned so much. We continue to learn every day. Every merchant has a little bit of a different story about how they're being impacted by this sort of stuff. Like some merchants are having this problem where they're partnering with influencers, where they got 50,000 influencers. We had a vitamin company who said, listen, we wanted to partner with this guy who was a triathlete who had, I think he had like 30,000 followers. And so they gave him an exclusive code, and lo and behold, literally like 2 days later, like that guy was driving like 100 sales a day. And I think the merchant was like, oh my gosh, we finally unlocked how to partner with influencers. Like we really figured it out. This person has such amazing content and such loyal followers that they're all buying. No, it was Honey. Honey got a hold of the coupon code and it escalated. So
that is such even for me, I've been in this business forever, but one, I never thought about, I never gave it thought of how Honey works, because I just saw it one day when it first came out. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then never gave it thought after that. I just figured like these big, huge companies like Best Buy or, GameStop or whatever, they will make codes available, specifically for Honey, some kind of deal that they worked out or something. That's the way I thought it worked in my head. I never in a million years. Some do.
Okay. But here's the deal. Honey still scrapes codes out at checkout.
Yeah, that's the thing I was just about to say. That never even crossed my mind. So even though that we use software on my end, I'm not going to name the tools on here, but they're pretty sophisticated tools to track attribution about multiple channels, and you're still off. Some of these big companies, it's like, how is this so off? Like, it makes no sense. Like, we know there's a little bit here, but sometimes we see these spikes. And now you just open my mind to something completely I never even crossed my mind.
Listen,
and some of these brands are huge. Yes.
After we get off this podcast, you and I will figure out how we can help a lot of your merchants really solve this problem. And by the way, here's what it does. Like, we're going to give control back to the merchant. So now, instead of losing $35 on a $100 sale because somebody jammed in, a whole bunch of 35% off checkout coupons, you're now going to have like $35 to go and really market and drive net new incremental users.
Absolutely.
Really, it's revenue erosion. And I tell people, like, we deliver software that allows you to grow your grow your revenue without actually growing your sales. Like, you tell me somebody who can help you do that. Like, I don't think there are many companies out there that can do that.
No.
So yeah, like, listen, it runs the gamut. Like, we've got one customer that's in our closed beta right now. And they are an interior design company. They do carpets and drapes and, fabrics and all that sort of stuff. And they actually partnered with interior designers. They wanted to give interior designers an exclusive discount because they want them to then tell their customers, like, hey, where did you get that fabric for those pillows or those drapes or whatnot? The coupon was actually for 50% off. They really wanted to forge relationships with interior designers. Well, guess what? One of the interior designers who typed in the code had Honey on their browser. Honey then scraped the coupon out. And literally every day that week, anybody who had Honey was getting 50% off. It created a customer service nightmare for this merchant, because this merchant, like, they actually canceled orders because they couldn't truly afford to give every customer that came to their website 50% off.
Yeah.
And by the way, that wasn't the intent of the coupon. The intent of the coupon was very specifically for these certain people. And so,
we just ran a 50% off Black Friday sale in one of my stores, one of my brands. Like, it was this Friday, but we hyped it up for a week, and it did really well. I haven't gone through all the reports, but it's not big enough to really be affected by. Unless somebody had Honey on their website, and if it scraped it, but I don't think it's a new brand. So that one, I don't think it made a huge difference. But as a small business, my partner, She's a small business. I acquire 51% just because, she's one of my old clients. It's like, let's do this online. Let's take it all online. And, to her, like, and to me, of course, because I'm part owner of the business, but every penny counts. And
100%.
I mean, it's not big enough to be affected like that, but that's an eye-opening for everybody who's probably listening to this or watching this, because most of the people that watch this have Shopify stores that are growing and growing and growing. And all it takes is one promotion, one code to spread that way. Man, I feel guilty now. I'm going to delete Honey after this.
Well, listen, I think it's important that you have it on. But yeah, listen, when I see a discount that pops in at checkout and it says like first responder 20, to me that even on Veterans Day, I saw like Veterans Day discounts getting in there. Like that just feels to me like just dishonest, right. And you wouldn't walk into the store at the mall and try and pass yourself off as a veteran if you weren't a veteran, that sort of thing, So, I get it. Listen, I think we all have to have a little bit of integrity here. And we're just trying to do
especially now. I know people have this mentality, oh, it's just Amazon, or it's just, again, I don't know why I keep saying Best Buy. It's Best Buy or Target or whatever. Yeah. It's the mentality of like, they're huge companies that got plenty of money, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, that's great. But think about it when you're going to a Shopify store, like a small, e-commerce store. That's just a small brand, they're doing their thing. I mean, you're really affecting the small businesses that, hopefully they can grow and employ people and put food on people's table. I mean, that story you just told with the 50%, that can completely destroy a business, because you're giving away, you're like, okay, I'm going to give away all my profit, cover my overhead, but they're never in a million years they count it getting out of control like that. And at that point, what are you going to do? Well, like, you're not going to deliver to your clients, your customers. What do you do?
Well, and this is the thing. They canceled orders. Right. Let's think about the customer service nightmare where you have to call someone and say, hey, listen, even though you put in that coupon, we can't honor it.
Yeah, that sucks.
And so really the reason that they're using our software is because like they just don't want to have those customer service issues ever again. Like they don't want to have to make those calls. So, and again, like when you look at the kind of the parallels between the two worlds, right? Like it really comes down to delivering a delightful user experience. If you go to your favorite website and they have ads on it and those ads destroy the user experience, you may never go back.
Right.
And I think that same thing applies for commerce. You want people to come and buy from you and repeat buy from you, because once you acquire a customer, right, like then you have their mailing information. And like that's another one, right, where people are like, you can go to most websites will say like, give us your email address and we'll give you 10% off.
Yeah.
Right. Some people either do that and then forget to put that code in at checkout, or they don't do that and they never get that data. Well, if you go in and you buy and you're automatically getting the welcome 10 coupon, right? Like, I don't know, like you're supposed to remember to put it in. Now Honey puts it in for you. So like it really, it erodes your revenue at every level. So
that's crazy. Let me ask you something though. Now with, well, obviously, I run traffic all day, so I get to see the data. I want to say, depending on the niche or the type of store, 85% or more traffic, it's mobile, one. People do come back on the second, third, or even the 25th touch and buy from a desktop at some point. But I mean, the truth of the matter is most people are buying from their phones. Now, how does your extension work when it comes to the mobile side of things? And the other question, I don't know if it's a two-part, but the other question before I forget is, how do you guys playing with Apple? Because Apple, it's releasing the new software update, that blocks data all the way. Like it's blocking pixels, server-side API, blah, blah, blah. How do you guys dealing with all of that?
So the beauty of our products is like we don't require any PII. We don't require any identifiable information. We're really blocking methodologies and behaviors, right? So a lot of what we do is driven by behavioral analysis of code on page, and we just block the nefarious or malicious or untrusted actions. So super easy on that front. On the question about mobile versus desktop. These extensions at the moment are now predominantly run on desktops, right? Sure. So on mobile, I think you're I would say safe for now, but as you know, right, like everything starts on desktop and moves to mobile. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. Right? So I was wondering what you guys' vision or plan was for that if you weren't there yet.
Yeah, the cool part is even though we work in ad tech and we work in e-commerce, our company is a cybersecurity company. Right. And so you have to have somewhat a sense of paranoia of that, like someone is always either trying to get around you or trying to avert your protocols and kind of beat you. And so we know that the landscape is constantly changing. It changes the only constant in our business. And so, it's kind of one of those things where you got to always prepare for each of these scenarios. It's like a chess game.
Yeah, and when I was asking that question about Apple, it wasn't so much like, oh, what kind of information are you guys getting access to? It was more of like, it's Apple playing nice with letting you guys, protect these businesses. That's what I meant by that question.
Yeah, listen, we sit on the website's pages, right? So that we're code on page on the website, at browser level. So, so that's where we operate, and so far so good.
No, I get it, man. That's cool. Where do you see the technology in the company going in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So 3 years ago for us, it was about solving, really solving this problem in malvertising. But I think that, strategically what we're really doing is protecting from, malicious and untrusted JavaScript. Right. And so I think there's various places where that exists. And that's really where, what happened I think on the malvertising side, and that same analog happened in e-commerce with these browser extensions. We don't think the browser extensions are the only place where malicious and untrusted JavaScript is happening in e-commerce. So we think there's more room and white space to evolve in that. But we think the tip of the spear really is with these extensions at the moment. But I'm sure the landscape is going to change, and then there will be yet another adjacency. Like most cybersecurity companies solve in verticals, and so for us, we've solved in one, and now we're moving into our second successfully. And then I think it's like, how do we just keep looking at new adjacencies where our technology applies and going and attacking.
Yeah, some people are so naive to it too. Like, the extensions, I'm always careful about the extensions that I use. I only have a few, and obviously I wasn't careful enough because I had no idea that Honey will scrape coupons like that. But people don't realize this, but a lot of the people watching this and listening to this, they have like WooCommerce or Shopify stores. And I want to say probably 90% of them have Shopify stores. And there's people out there, these so-called quote unquote gurus, when it comes to the marketing world, it's like, oh, we made this cool extension that does this and that for your store, and you can track everything and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, guys, you just gave this dude access to your whole store and your sales. Like, they can see exactly what products you're selling them. It's like Amazon. Yeah. Once they have the data, it's like, oh, this guy's selling like $1 million worth of this. Guess what? Let's make our own. And then you just create a competition for yourself. Yep. I mean, one thing is to have it in your store, but they can't access the numbers. I mean, there's ways around it if you really want to, but don't do that. But I mean, essentially that's what a lot of these apps do, that if you don't look into it and see what they do, they're pulling information, they're pulling data from your actual store, and you're sending all that data back to them. Yeah. Just because it's approved by Shopify or WooCommerce, don't trust that. I've done it where I install, apps on my store, and then I go into the code and I'm like, what? Sending what back? No. I don't think so. And delete right away, not even less than 24 hours later. Yeah. But, people, what do you think people should do? Like, business owners should be more careful about, and what they should look out for when building these sites, or just, I guess, browsing the web in general.
Listen,
to protect themselves.
I have 3 kids and I have parental controls on their devices.
Oh man, let's not even get into, I have a 15-month-old, and I'm already like in the back of my head, I'm like, how am I going to do? I mean, luckily I know this whole world, so I can figure it out, but I'm just thinking, I'm like, everything that I have to block, like, how am I going to do it?
Yeah. No, listen, parental control, like, I will say, so when I was at Capcom, we launched this game called Smurfs Village. Basically what it was Farmville with Smurfs. Right. And we sold Smurf berries. You can Google it if you want to check it out. But this was the game that actually pushed Apple to launch parental controls, because literally, parents were handing the device back to their kids, and the kids were downloading $100 barrels of Smurf berries in virtual goods. But listen, I think, my kids come to me all the time and they're like, hey, can I download this app? And I look at it and I'm like, oh, I've never heard of that developer. And, like all the permission, like they're like, listen, no, I don't think you really want that on your device, looking at everything else that you do on your device. So right. I just tell people to be cautious, do your diligence. If it looks weird and smells weird. And by the way, it's the same as marketing, right? Like in marketing, if you're looking at your data, and your attribution. And and this is where we had one D2C brand that's in our beta. They're like, listen, we sponsored this podcast and we gave them the code and literally it was doing like 1,000 units the next day. And they're like, it looked weird because we didn't even know if that podcast had 1,000 listens yesterday. So, I think if it looks weird and smells weird, you probably should dig deeper. And,
I tell people all the time, still to this day, I'm like, when I show up to a family reunion or whatever, it's like, Christian, fix my computer. I'm like, you guys do know I'm not IT, right? I know my computers and stuff, but it's like, it's like this way I tell them, I'm like, listen, I never get a virus or malware because I'm not visiting sites that are shady. Like I literally have Microsoft Essentials on my antivirus and I've never had an issue. And then I scan my computer once a month, and every once in a while, something will come up, but it's very rare. But it's just use common sense, right? If it's a shady website, it's probably not good, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we all know that there's no silver bullets, right? So if something looks too good to be true, it probably is. I would just say ask the questions, ask the right questions.
Oh, before I let you go, because we're almost out of time, but I kind of want to go back into the whole mobile gaming thing.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Because I'm one of those people, man. For some reason, for the longest time, well, I don't play games on my phone. I don't have the time either. So, but for the longest time, I was that way. It's like, oh, $5 for a game on my phone, forget that. And then I'll go out to the bar and spend $100 on drinks with friends. And
of course,
what, right?
Every night.
So what do you think? Yeah, exactly. Why do you think that mentality was there? Because you'll pay $60 for a game for a PlayStation or PC or whatever, right?
Actually, not anymore. And I'll tell you a really good story about that. But why? I don't know. Because I'm the same as you. I have Candy Crush, right? That is my addiction. Every night, that's how I decompress. I'm at level 2,000. I've never paid for anything. Never paid once. Okay. Yeah. And by the way, I probably would because I love it so much. But I almost had this principle I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to give them $1.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is, you ever heard of this game Fortnite?
Oh, absolutely. Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And my 8-year-old is addicted to Fortnite. And you said, people pay $60 to buy a console game. They don't pay $60 anymore. Okay. So that's the old school people who are like you and me who think you pay $60 anymore.
Yeah.
I had to sit down with my son who's 8. And by the way, we monitor all of his purchases. And I had to count how much money he had spent on Fortnite.
Oh, hold on. Fortnite's free. And then you just pay to play. I forgot about that. I didn't think about that.
These are the most brilliant people in video games I think it's an intersection of video game creators, casino operators.
Oh, it's straight up gambling.
They have the full loop they've figured out. But here's this. So Fortnite is a game where you go and you go into a battle arena and you shoot people and whatever, last person standing wins, that sort of thing. My son's addicted. I think he'd spent $100 over the course of 10 weeks, literally $9 or $10 a week or something like that. And so lo and behold, they figured out how to take this game. It's kind of like Candy Crush, where you build it once and 6 years or 8 years later, people are still playing it.
Right.
Fortnite season 5 launched this week. So they've now turned this thing into it's like a television series.
That's crazy.
Where season 5 launches yesterday. And by the way, it's a time that it launches at. I think it was yesterday morning. My son cannot wait because when you pay $9 for the battle pass, which is your ability to, battle in season 5,
sure,
you get a new skin. Well, guess what? The skin for this one, the Mandalorian. Right. And so now they've taken a brilliant gameplay, right? Brilliant execution. And they've piled on licensing on top of that. So last season, it was the Marvel universe. So my son couldn't wait to pay for the Iron Man skin. So now he's got Mandalorian skin. And, lo and behold, he wakes me up this morning and tells me he's already at level 8. But guess what? When you get to level 100, you get Baby Yoda that follows you. It's genius, unbelievable. It's listen, they've figured it out. So Epic Games, you are the best marketers on the planet.
No, and when you have the power to have licensing with Disney and Marvel and stuff like that, forget it. But I mean, I say this now because my kids, first kid, 15 months old, and he's not allowed to go nowhere near a cell phone or a tablet or anything like that. The only time he goes near a cell phone is to take a selfie with me or something, and that's it. Just because I know how all this stuff works. I mean, it's dopamine, central. Like your whole phone is dopamine central. Notifications, colors, everything.
Yep.
So I'm gonna try to battle that as long as I can, but I think it's drawn a fine line where it's just I mean, the way they do it. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say brainwash, but it's designed in a way to keep you coming back and getting more. It's like a casino. It's like going to Vegas and walking into a casino. The sounds, the colors, the story, the licensing, everything. It's like, here's a fun fact. One of the biggest, most successful Shopify stores, because I actually made a video about this. There's a way you can go search by IP and see who's selling the most using Shopify. One of the biggest stores is skins for CSGO. It's a first-person shooting game.
Interesting.
People are just buying digital downloads of a skin for their gun. That's it. It's one of the top Shopify stores out there. Millions.
It's crazy.
It's insane. it's crazy.
Hold on. Anyway, I'm writing that one down.
Yeah, write it down, man. Matt, we're out of time, man. Listen, we almost gone for an hour. That's crazy. It didn't even feel like it. Thank you so much for coming on. If you're e-com company and you need protection, where can they find you? Clean.io. What other links do we need to put in the description? Where can people find you?
You got it. Clean.io. That's where you'll find us. Our product is called Clean Cart. If you want to email me, you can hit me at matt@clean.io or hit me on LinkedIn, wherever's more convenient for you. But love to help. Love to hear what your challenges are and hear how we can solve them.
Awesome, man. Matt, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can do this again soon, all right?
Awesome. We'll do a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Christian. Cheers, man.